economic development estimates, we go looking for a plan to grow the economy. And for the benefit of my national colleagues opposite, I'll give them a definition of the word plan, because it's quite clear they don't have any understanding of it. The Webster's Dictionary tells us that a plan is a scheme, program or method worked out beforehand for the accomplishment of an objective. All right, well, let's have a look at the National Party's plan then. We can see the objective. We know what the objective is. Close the wage gap with Australia by 2025. That's the objective. No matter, Mr Chair, that the wage gap between Australia and New Zealand actually increased in the 1990s from 18.9% to 28.4% in the 1990s and has basically stayed steady since then. Now let's think about what happened in that period in the 1990s. That was the period of the Employment Contracts Act. So what do we now see coming from the National Party? An economic plan that's based on attacking workers' rights and cutting conditions in the workplace. That's the substance of the plan, as we've heard it so far from John Key and the National Party. And the history of that for economic development is that's what caused the wage gap to grow between Australia and New Zealand. So what does the National Party have as its scheme or its program to try and reach this objective? Well, there was the task force, the 2025 task force, $500,000 trashed on the first day. In fact, trashed before the first day. National ministers desperately spinning against their former leader, Don Brash, to say, no, they're not the ideas. Don Brash, he overspent. He spent his whole budget on the task force in the first year anyway, ignored it, blew the budget, but National didn't want to know about that either. So what else have we seen in terms of an actual plan for economic development? The Jobs Summit. Well, the Jobs Summit gave us the cycleway. Now, cycleways in and of themselves, terrific, but in terms of step change for economic development, useless. Almost no jobs from that, and it's certainly not the step change plan in the economy. And then we heard about mining, and here we come to the essence of the National Party's economic development plan. This was going to be the step change. This was going to be what would get us there in the future. But instead, a screeching of tyres, Jerry Brownlee's rolled by the rest of the cabinet. He's gone, no plan for mining, no plan for jobs. It's kicking the tyres, it's trickle-down economics, when what New Zealand needs is not kicking the tyres, it's putting some fuel in the engine. And what puts fuel in the engine of economic development more than anything else? Skills and innovation. And skills and innovation have been abandoned in Vote Economic Development. They have been abandoned. There has no skills strategy. Now, the current government likes to belittle the idea of a strategy. The skills strategy was a combined effort by Business New Zealand, the CTU and the government to actually have a plan for how we have a skilled workforce in New Zealand. What have we heard about the skills strategy since National's been in government? Absolutely nothing. Nothing whatsoever in terms of skills. In fact, the only contribution in terms of skills that we hear from the National government is the contribution of cutting money out of adult and community education, cutting money from intensive literacy and numeracy funds, cutting from polytechnics, $70 million coming out of the polytechnic sector over the next couple of years. These are the places where we get skilled New Zealanders from. This is the engine room of economic development, and it's been completely abandoned by this government, completely left alone, because they're not prepared to plan for the long term. They're only looking for the photo opportunity, and there is no plan for economic development. And if we want to look across to Australia and look at the role of skills in developing the economy in Australia, Australia's got a plan to increase the number of people with degrees to 40% of the population, currently at 31. We're in the 20s and we're going down. We have no plan to catch up with Australia and grow wages, because we have no plan to do the things that will do that, to create a skilled workforce, to create a productive work environment. We have none of that from this government. We have no plan coming from this government in the area of economic development. Because, Mr Chair, if all we can get is poll-driven U-turns on mining and a lack of a vision for investing in a new economy with new jobs and technology and making the best of our skill base and our productive workforce, then we will go nowhere, Mr Speaker, and that, unfortunately, is what we are seeing from this government. When it comes to the question of innovation, Mr Brownlee and others like to say that they've renamed a few things, rebranded the odd idea. That's not enough, Mr Chair. If we want proper economic development in this country, we need a plan that harnesses skills and productivity.
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Mr Chair, I